If you're homeless in another state, well, you need to go back to that state, and your social circle, your support group, your family, friends, where you grew up, that's the place you need to go back to. And this is becoming something of a federal crisis level now, because LA cannot be the receiving body for the entire nation's homeless. We're going to be overrun. It's going to destroy our community. It's already wrecking Olvera Street, the 101 freeway, Venice, West LA. There's so many other places this is being impacted, and we're going to be addressing them one by one. Now,
hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Live with Suzi show. This is Suzi Katami, your host and producer of the show, and we are so thrilled and happy to be speaking to the Honorable Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who is going to be talking to us about few important issues that he has been working on. One of the main important ones is the homeless crisis issues, which I'm sure it's important to all of you out there listening. Now, before welcoming Sheriff, I'd like to go over his bio quickly for those of you who may not know about his background. Sheriff Villanueva is an American law enforcement officer serving as the 33rd Sheriff of Los Angeles County, California. He defeated incumbent Sheriff Jim McDonnell in 2018 Los Angeles County Sheriff's race, making him the first to unseat an incumbent over 100 years. Before becoming sheriff, he was a lieutenant with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Well, welcome to the show, Sheriff, and it's an honor really to have you talking to my listeners and followers.
Oh, thank you for having me there. There's a lot going on right now.
I bet I follow you. I'm actually following you on the Facebook. It's one of the parts of the social media that we actually post all our shows, and I see what you're doing. I was so honored to be at the event about a month ago, listening to what you're doing for our city and all the hard works you are involving yourselves with, which is all great. And I'd like for our viewers, followers to hear you talk to them about it, because obviously this coming year, June 3rd, 2022, is an election year day, actually, and I'd like people to know about you, what you're doing, so they can vote for you once they hear you talk. Now, one of the important issues, and in the middle of this pandemic and everything else going on, is the homeless issues, which has been on the rise. And I know you've started your plans, and you're doing very well, which is what I'm following, but I want everyone to know and hear it from you. So please go ahead and let us know.
Well, we've seen in the last 10 years, the homeless population has grown from around 39,000 to today. It's probably north of 80,000 homeless. And that's the size of a medium-sized city in the United States. Mm-hmm. And and it's gone unchecked. Year after year, it continues to grow. But the solutions we get from the Board of Supervisors, from the leadership of the city of LA, is to continue to throw money at it. And somehow it's going to solve the problem. But what they fail to do is they fail to regulate public space. It's as simple as that. Because you can house 100 people, but if you turn around and find that 120 people took the place of the 100 you just housed, well, now you got a bigger problem, because now you got to pay for the ones you house, and now you still have the mess of 120 that are unhoused. And that math somehow eludes our elected leaders, our politicians, because all they do is throw money at it. They spend a lot of money on these 501c3 nonprofits, and a lot of employees make a living off the homeless, but unfortunately it doesn't impact the number of homeless on the street. In fact, it just grows year after year. So we got to get back to some basics, which is regulating public space.
Okay. Now, I remember you talked on that event about the homeless issues and crises on the rise. One of the reasons you mentioned, or at least I understood, was the fact that a lot of them coming from other states to California, most probably because of the weather we have here in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And and that was a great point. I heard you talk. I hadn't heard anyone else making comments about that in the past, any other dignitaries. And I was so thrilled to hear you talk about it. It's an important issue. So what are you doing about that so far? Because I know you've started already with this crisis and started different places. The last was that I'm aware of was the Venice Beach area. So how do you distinguish who's coming from where, and how do they tell you the truth or what, and how do you actually return them back to the state they come from?
Well, first off, for starters, we have to recognize that there's a false narrative about the homeless population. The homeless industrial complex and the politicians are trying to sell the idea that all the homeless are there because they have nowhere else to go, and they suffer from mental health issues, substance abuse issues, which is very true, but that they have no alternative but to be homeless. And that is the part that's troubling, because a lot of the homeless choose to be homeless in spite of having a roof over their head. And they do not want to have responsibilities. They don't want to have to live under a set of rules and regulations. So they elect to remain homeless. So that part is not acknowledged by the response from the city and the county, where everyone, if they just had a place to go, they'd all go somewhere. So you have this Operation Room Key, Operation Home Key. No, we have to regulate public space, but we have to honor the Boise decision. So we'll find that bed space for people. We're also going to establish safe campgrounds, safe parking areas. This is the responsibility of the board and the city council. They should have these places already set up. And then we have to offer people the opportunity to move, to go into shelter. Then if they don't leave, well, then we have to show them the way out, because the status quo of just remaining here is not acceptable, and we have to start enforcing some basic rule of law, and then we're going to be able to get a control of it. Once we regulate public space, people out of state are not going to come here anymore, but they're coming here for free services and great weather. I mean, who can argue that?
No, definitely. I mean, obviously, we have the best weather in all the country, so that I can totally relate to. Now, talking about the responsibility of other departments. Now, how could you overcome their responsibilities? Would that be a collaboration between you guys, or your work can roll over theirs and you can get on with your work? Or how does that work?
Well, it helps when people collaborate, because right now we have the Homeless Outreach Service Team. They're on the boardwalk. They're making connections. They're doing all of their outreach efforts. But they're in an environment where the city is not cooperating or collaborating with them. We've been to other cities where they roll up their sleeves and they say, what can we do to help? And these are the resources we have to offer. And it's a really good partnership. And we have the chance to turn cities around, to clean up encampments, get people the services they need, the shelter they need, get them into transitional housing. It all works good when everyone is working together. But the city of LA somehow thinks that the solution is not to do anything that's just going to offend the homeless and allow them to remain, even though they're damaging the community and they're hurting themselves. We lose 5 homeless a day on the streets of LA. They die. So we can't claim. Yeah, 5 a day. That's about just under 2,000 a year. So someone who's arguing that's compassionate not to do anything, they're just fooling themselves. The compassionate way is to get them help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, obviously they need help with their housing, with their mental health, if they're, using drugs and abuse drugs in many cases and incidences, of course. And the couple of areas for us Iranian or Persians who live in Los Angeles or Los Angeles County are places like Brentwood. That I see a lot of them, they're actually permanently living there. It's like having a hotel by the sidewalk. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anything happening about that neighborhood?
Well, we're working on 3 areas right now. We have Venice, we have Olvera Street, the 101 corridor, and then we're going to start working on the encampments that are into the canyons and all the areas that have wildfire dangers, because that is an immediate threat to everyone's safety because of the drought conditions and a lot of combustible material that's in the canyons. So those encampments have to be cleared out. before the summer heat kicks in, because they're a threat to everyone's safety.
Absolutely.
But we want to encourage the city council, the one that covers Brentwood, for example, Hollywood, all these different areas, San Fernando Valley, that are exhibiting the telltale signs of homeless encampments that are encroaching on the communities. We need to have them working with the local. They need to unhandcuff the LAPD, because the LAPD can get the job done. They want to get the job done, but somehow, this is where it gets weird, the city council runs the LAPD instead of the mayor and the chief of police. So every council district has a different response from the LAPD. And I don't think that's in the best interest of either the LAPD or the community. It might work for the politicians and in that crowd, but it doesn't help the community at all. So we need to get LAPD back in the business of regulating public space, and they can do the job very well. And I'm going to support their effort in doing that. And we'll work with them for sure. But we need to get the politicians out of the way.
Yes, they make life difficult at times. Now, as we are listening to you talk, what can we do as citizens to help this matter? Anything? Any suggestions from you?
Yes. You need to know who your supervisor is in your district.
Mm-hmm.
Every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m., they're going to start reopening the doors to the Hall of Administration, and we'll have board hearings in public, in person. So it will no longer be this game on Zoom where no one can speak or they cut you off. And we need people to show up. I need people to call their supervisor, write to their supervisor, express their outrage over the failure to regulate public space and to use money wisely. We've spent billions, not millions, not hundreds of millions, but billions, only to see a problem grow year after year. Time to hold the politicians accountable. That includes the supervisors, the city council, and the mayor. They have to show us where the money went and why was it misspent. Because right now lives are at stake, livelihoods are at stake, but judging by the actions of the board and the city, you wouldn't know that.
Totally. Well, wonderful speaking with you. I know you're very busy. I have a million other questions to ask you. Well, not million, but I have many more questions to ask you. And I'm hoping, and only hoping, that in the near future, before the election day, June 3rd, 2022, we have another opportunity to be speaking with you and ask more questions. On that note, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all my listenerships and viewers for your time, and wishing you the best, because you're really helping our city getting to where it deserves to be.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of reaching out and speaking to your listeners, and look forward to chatting again.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you, Sheriff.
You got it.